Okay, so the learning outcomes for today's session. So it's a session on literature searching, and hopefully after today's session you should be able to identify the purpose of your search. So what kind of literature search are you doing? Turn your research question into a database search, so using different concepts and different keywords. We're going to talk about using some advanced search techniques, so hopefully you'll be more confident using those by the end of today's session. We are also going to talk about where you might search. So we're going to talk about some key information sources and just have a little chat about the differences between those information sources. And we're going to show you how to actually do a search and save a search and set up an alert. And also we're going to cover how to find full text articles. So this is of course session 1 of a 2-part programme. So we will be running session 2 next week. So we will be building on today's session and doing some more additional topics next week. So just before we start, we just want to flag up that we know that there are quite a few concerns when it comes to literature searches, and we get a lot of people coming to us and talking to us about the literature searching and saying, oh, I'm worried about not finding all the literature, or I'm not sure how to manage the information I find, or I might be missing something. So these are kind of the common concerns that people have. So you might have one, you might have all of these. Hopefully you don't have all of them, but you maybe have a couple of these concerns. And just to say that that's completely normal and that's okay. And hopefully after today's session and next week's session, you'll feel a lot more confident, and hopefully these concerns won't be as concerning for you. So, but if you have any additional concerns that aren't listed on this slide, please do pop them in the chat box throughout the session. Or if there's a question that you have that we don't answer in today's session or next week's session, please do let us know. Let us know what that question is in the chat box during the session, or have a chat with us at the end of the session. We really want you to tell us if we don't answer any specific questions. But these are kind of the common ones. So if you have any of these, don't worry, that's completely normal, and hopefully by the end of the session you'll feel a bit more confident. Okay, so I'm going to pass over to Deirdre now to start talking about the planning stage of the literature search.
So good morning, everybody. So the planning stage, I think, is a really important part of the literature searching process. And if you spend time at your planning stage, really planning out your search, it'll save you a lot of time and headache later on. So first, I'd like to hand over to you. I'd like you to let me know in chat what the purpose of your literature search is. So if you have a minute to think about why you're doing this literature search, what are you trying to find out? What is the purpose of your literature search? And if you let me know in chat, thank you. So thanks everybody for your responses. They're all really good and interesting responses. There's people working on specific research questions that they want to find answers for. There's people looking to kind of find background information on their topic or research area to find out kind of what's gone before them and where their research fits into the gap. So in terms of literature reviews, there's lots of different types of literature reviews you can do. We have on the handout, we have on page 2 a link to all the different types of literature reviews there are and an explanation of them. Today I'm just going to talk about 3 of possibly the most common literature reviews you may have heard of. So they're the narrative, scoping and systematic review. The narrative review, it sounds like the type of literature review most of you have been describing in terms of what you're trying to achieve with your literature review. So this is typically the type of literature review that you would want to do for the literature review chapter of your thesis. And the main purpose of a narrative review is to give a comprehensive overview of the topic or your research question to date, to highlight significant areas of research within it, and to identify gaps in the research and show how your research fits in within the context of the existing research. And a lot of you have said that that is what you're trying to achieve with your literature review. There's a video, the final chapter YouTube video, which we signpost to on page 5 of the handout. So this gives a really good description and purpose of the requirements of a narrative literature review, and we'd recommend that you might want to look at that after the session. Another type of review is the scoping review. So a scoping review is aimed at providing just a preliminary assessment of the potential size and scope of the available research literature. So it's kind of trying to find the nature and extent of the research evidence, including ongoing research on a particular topic. So they're designed to inform researchers as to whether a kind of fuller review is needed. So just to get kind of an overview and really what is the literature on that topic, the nature and extent of the literature. A third type of review that some of you may have heard of is a systematic review. So systematic reviews are used widely in the area of medicine and healthcare, but they're being used in other disciplines as well, such as geography, environmental science, social science. So a systematic review is attempting to appraise and identify and synthesize all the evidence that meets a specified eligibility criteria to answer a specific research question. So researchers conducting a systematic review, they're using explicit systematic methods that are selected with an aim at minimizing bias. So they're trying to produce more reliable findings to inform decision making. People often confuse systematic reviews with systematic searching. So systematic searching is the more general term used to describe doing a comprehensive literature search. And what you will be doing is a comprehensive literature search, although you may not be doing a systematic review. As I mentioned on page 2 of the handout, there's more information about the different types of literature reviews that you might want to look at and decide that you might want to do. So the purpose and methodology of each type of literature review can differ, but as I said, the most important thing is they require you to conduct a comprehensive literature search using advanced techniques, which we will show you how to do in this session. If anyone has any questions, please pop them in the chat. So starting with the kind of planning stage and how to structure your search. So we normally start with a research question. In this instance, I'm taking a research question that we've looked at in the past. So it's to what extent do mobile apps and other online tools increase the consumption of fruit and vegetable in children? Now, this is quite a straightforward question that I can break down into concepts. I'm aware that your question may not be as straightforward, and we'll talk about how to tackle that in a few minutes. So what I'm trying to do is I'm simply trying to break this research question down into concepts that the database can manage. So my first concept is mobile apps and online tools. My second concept is the consumption of fruit and vegetable. And my third concept is children. So you can see here, I'm really stripping this down just to the kind of bare concepts. I'm not thinking about all the extraneous terms, such as to what extent. So I'm just really stripping it back to kind of its bare bones and breaking it down to concepts that can be used in the database search. If anyone has any questions about this, please pop them into the chat. On page 2 of the handout, we've got further examples of breaking down a search into concepts. In the pre-work as well, you may have had a go at doing this. Don't worry, as Sally said, if you haven't had a chance to do it, we'll have a chance in a few more minutes to have a go at breaking a search down into concepts. So as I mentioned, often your research question is not as straightforward as the one I've just shown you. It can be more complex and more involved. And in this instance, you might want to think of multi-stranded research questions. So this would be where you have a kind of quite a complex topic. You might want to break it down into a series of questions and do separate searches for those sub-questions. So an example, this is a topic where a researcher came to me a couple of years ago. So They wanted to look at LGBT awareness in parents of primary school children from the perspective of religion, culture, identity, and geopolitics. So this is quite a big dense research topic. It's not that simple to just include it all in one question. So we thought about how we tackle this, and we decided that a multi-stranded research question would be the most appropriate. So between us, we teased out that they wanted to look at what does LGBT awareness in primary school mean for religious minorities from different geopolitical perspectives. They also wanted to find out what strategies are being used by governments to blend different communities to maximise acceptance levels. And then finally, they wanted to think about what ways do the LGBT community express themselves to obtain a space among religious communities during school practices. So we kind of felt that this was the best way of sort of tackling this kind of quite complex, dense research question. You can use a question map, as we used in our pre-work, to think about sub-questions if that's appropriate to your search. It's important to think carefully about whether a multi-stranded approach is the best. Obviously, it involves more work because you end up doing more searches. So it's important to kind of, at the planning stage, kind of think carefully what's the best thing for your question. And if you're not sure, please get in touch and ask us advice on this.
Now we're going to move on to actually building your search in a database. So hopefully you've kind of identified some of those main concepts within one of your searches. And now we need to start thinking about, okay, how are we actually going to do that in a database? And this is basically, we need to find synonyms for each of our concepts. So synonyms are alternative terms that we can use or an author might have used to refer to your different concepts. So I could go to a database and put mobile apps and consumption of fruit, vegetables and children, and I will find some research, and that's fine. I'll find some of the research out there, but I won't find the research where an author might have used slightly different terminology or different synonyms to the terms that I've got there. So this is where it's really important to spend time looking at each of your concepts and really thinking about what are the alternative terms an author could have used to talk about your different concepts. This allows us to really broaden our search out to help us find all the literature on our particular topic, because if we don't do that, we will find something, but we won't find everything out there. So this is a really important step when you're doing your literature searching, to think about all the different terms authors may have used. So you might be really familiar, well, you will be really familiar with your research areas, and you'll probably know the types of synonyms, the types of terms that authors will be using to talk about your different concepts. But you may not be aware of all of them. So what you might want to do, you might want to have a quick search on Google Scholar to find some key papers, start having a read of those abstracts to see whether you can identify some of those common terms that researchers are using. And then you can add those into your search. So this is at the stage where you do need to do a little bit of reading before you start fully developing your search strategy. You need to identify some of those key papers and start reading them and become familiar with the types of terms that authors are using. So I'm going to ask you now to have a go at thinking of synonyms for my particular research question here. And I know that you're not all experts in mobile apps in helping children eat more fruit and vegetables, and neither am I. But I think hopefully it's a topic that we can all probably relate to a little bit, and we can have a bit of an idea of the types of terms we might search for. So I usually ask you to type on the screen, but because there's so many of you, I think the screen might get a little bit busy if we start typing, if all 60 of you start typing on the slide. So I'm going to ask just you to type in the chat box. Could you let me know, have a little think, what other terms could we use for mobile apps or online tools? What other terms could we use for consumption of fruit and vegetables? And what other terms could we use for children? So we're trying to expand our search. What other synonyms could we use? So I'm just going to give you a couple of minutes just to have a little think and pop them into the chat box. Brilliant. Thank you for everyone who's popped stuff in the chat. You are obviously really good at this. You know what we're talking about. You know what you're doing. We've got loads of different synonyms, and this is what you're going to have to do for your research topics. So we've got healthy eating, social media, websites, infants, nutrition, digital tools, nutritional intake, smartphone apps, 5 a day, young children. Yeah, you get the picture. This is exactly what we're searching for. This is the types of terms that we need to put in when we are searching for this topic. So when it comes to your search, sit down, spend a few minutes thinking about your different concepts and how authors might refer to them. Have a read of some key papers if you're unsure. So this is just, I did this earlier, and these are some of the terms that I thought we could search for, and you've picked up a load of extra ones that I haven't here, but yeah, mobile apps, online tools, web pages, internet. I put video games in there because I thought maybe that could be classed as a mobile app or an online tool that could be used to help children increase their consumption of fruit and vegetables. I think just using terms like fruit, vegetables might pick up some papers. Like you don't necessarily have to put consumption of fruit and vegetables. You could put fruit or vegetables, healthy eating, healthy food, improving nutrition. I really like the nutritional intake one that someone shared in the chat. And then obviously there's quite a lot for children, teenagers, preschoolers, adolescents, young people. So you can see now we're really widening our search. We're widening our search. We're trying to find everything on our topic. And we do that by thinking of all these different synonyms. Okay, so now what we've got is basically a list of keywords, which is fine, but we now need to think about, okay, how are we actually going to combine those in a database search? Because we can't just type them in, we need to combine them in some way. And we combine them together using Boolean operators. So can I just, the main Boolean operators that we're going to talk about today are and or, and this is how we combine our keywords together. Can I just ask you to pop your virtual hand up if you are used to or have done before using Boolean operators and or in your search? Just pop your virtual hand up. I'd just be interested to know how many of you have used this before. So we've got a few, yeah, we've got quite a few. So for some of you, this will be familiar and you will be using this already in your searching. For others, it might be new, and that's absolutely fine. So these are Boolean operators. These are what we use to combine our keywords together. And the main ones that we use are and or. There is another one called not, but we recommend that you don't use the not Boolean operator because it can cause you to miss some relevant papers. So we usually just focus on and or. So we use or to broaden our search. We combine our synonyms within each concept using or. So for your first concept example, our mobile apps one, we might say mobile apps or mobile applications or online tools or digital tools or web pages. We're combining with or because we don't mind which of those terms are used in the article. We just want to find all of the articles that use any of those terms. So we always use or to combine our synonyms within each concept. And then we use our and to narrow that search and really focus our search. And we use and to combine the different concepts together. So you do all your oring and then you'd say, okay, but I actually only want to find my mobile app terms and my consumption of fruit and veg app terms and my children's terms. So that really focuses your search. So using or broadens your search to find everything that has your synonyms in, but then the and focuses your search just to find those articles that have all three sets of all three concepts in your search. So this is just a bit of a visual representation of what it might look like in a database. So we've got our first concept, which is mobile apps here. So we're combining this with or. So we're doing mobile apps or digital tools or video games or web pages. But then we want to say and fruit or vegetables or healthy eating or healthy food and teenagers or children or adolescents or young people or teens. So this is how we approach database searching. We use the ors to combine synonyms and then we use and to combine those concepts together. Does anyone have any questions about using Boolean? We are going to do a demo because so if it doesn't appear clear now, we are going to actually show you how to search Web of Science. I'm going to show you how to use these how to use these Boolean operators. Miranda, you've asked, should we use parentheses to collect all the terms? all the or terms? Yes, you can do. You don't necessarily when we demo Web of Science, you basically put all your search terms for one concept in one search box, and then you put all your search terms for the next concept in another search box. So you don't necessarily have to use parentheses to group your terms. But if you're in a database where you have to type all your search terms into one search box, you would need to use parentheses. And these are basically brackets. But Deirdre is going to speak about that in the next section, just about parentheses and using brackets to group your terms. So yes, you can do, but you don't have to if you've already got separate search boxes. Okay, so before we move on to the next section, I'm going to do a little quiz on Boolean and have a go at answering this first question. Which search string, so the search string is our keywords that we're putting in, would give you the most results? Would it be well-being and emotional health? Would it be well-being and emotional health? Or would it be well-being or emotional health? Okay, so yes, the 25 people who put well-being or emotional health were right. So we use or to really broaden our search. So by saying well-being, searching for articles with well-being as two words, or emotional health, we'll find all the papers that have well-being as one word, well-being as two words, or emotional health. It'll give us the most results. The other ones, well-being and emotional health, will only find those papers where it has well-being as one word, well-being as two words, and emotional health. We're being very focused there. We only want to find papers that have all of our keywords in. And the second one, although we put well-being or well-being, we've anded that with emotional health. So we're only going to find papers that have well-being and emotional health. So again, we're being a little bit more focused. And this third one, the well-being or emotional health, we're saying, okay, we don't mind any of those words. We want to find any papers with any of those words in. So that will give us the most results. So well done to those who have chosen that one. Right, second question. If you were searching for the effects of sleep deprivation on academic performance, which search string would retrieve the most relevant results? So would it be sleep deprivation and academic performance, sleep deprivation or academic performance, and sleep deprivation not academic performance? And I haven't really told you what not does, so that's a bit of a clue. Okay, the results are slowing down a bit, and I think most people have got it right. Yes, it is of course the first one. So if we did sleep deprivation and academic performance, we would only be finding papers that had both sleep deprivation and academic performance. So hopefully those results would be quite relevant. They would have both of our concepts in. If you did sleep deprivation or academic performance, you would find articles that had sleep deprivation on but didn't have anything to do with academic performance. And you would also find papers that talked about academic performance that had nothing to do with sleep deprivation. So that wouldn't be relevant for us. And then the third one no one's chosen, but that would mean if we did that, we'd find papers that had sleep deprivation in but not academic performance. So it would only be papers about sleep deprivation, but it wouldn't mention anything about academic performance, so they wouldn't be relevant either. So it's that first one, you're combining the two concepts using and. Well done. So a final question. True or false, the Boolean operator or is used to narrow your search? Yes, we just had one person. Oh, just a couple of people saying true. The correct answer is false. No, the Boolean operator broadens our search. We use or to combine those synonyms within each concept because we want to broaden our search. We want to find any papers with any of those search terms in one of our concepts. So it helps us broaden, helps us widen our search. And then we use and to focus and narrow our search as well at the end. Okay, so oring always broadens your search. Always combine your synonyms within each concept using or.
So welcome back, everybody. I hope you had a chance to stretch your legs or get a drink. So we're going to continue on with the session now, and we're going to talk about other keyword searching tips that may be useful to you. And I know that the first one is one that Miranda was asking questions about slightly earlier. So parentheses. So parentheses or brackets are used to specify the order in which you wish terms and the Boolean operators to be searched. So what they do is they group terms you want searched together. So for instance, we have, if we want to do a search for cat or kittens, or horses or foals, we would group cat or kittens together, so that concept together. We would group the concept for horse or foal together, and we could combine those with and. Another option is the asterisk. So asterisk truncates words to help you find variant endings to terms. So we have an example here. If we search therap with an asterisk, it will search therapy, therapies, or therapeutic. So this is really useful as it saves us having to think or type out all the various potential word endings for a term that we're interested in. However, we need to be careful with using this one because for some terms, such as, for instance, if you typed NURS and an asterisk, it would find, if we were looking for nurses or nursing, it would also find nursery. So you might not want to find papers about nurseries where small children go. So you might want to think about that. There's a website used in Scrabble called morewords.com that tells you what variant word endings are used if you search for a particular term. So I find that useful to see what I would get in terms of other endings I hadn't thought about. Another option, Lila has a question, would we use not in the case of wanting to avoid certain word endings? So not, as Sally mentioned, we don't tend to, you could use it, but we don't tend to use it. The problem with using not would be that we could end up missing out papers. For instance, if we searched for papers, if we said not mobile apps, we could miss out papers that are about mobile apps and another topic we may be potentially interested in. So Lyra, what I would suggest you would do in this situation is, instead of using not, you would just, if you were interested, my example of nurses or nursing, you would just type out nurse or nurses or nursing, and you wouldn't use the truncation in that situation. A third option is the question mark. So this searches for a variable single character or no character at all. So this is really useful for British and American spellings. As you know, we use a U in words such as behavior, and the Americans don't. So if we would miss out papers by American authors if we use the UK only spelling, and vice versa. So using the question mark is a way of getting around this. Having said that, all the various syntax or question marks or asterisks, they can vary from database to database. So it's important to look in the help section of the database to see what's being used in that particular database. So other keyword searching tips are phrase searching. If you put terms or two words in speech marks, it could be 3 words, it's telling the database just to find that specific phrase. So young people in speech marks will find kind of only papers where young people are right beside each other. So this will help avoid finding irrelevant papers. So for instance, in some databases, if you just typed young people without the speech marks, you could find young in one sentence and people in another sentence, maybe kind of 15 spaces away. So that creates kind of irrelevancy in your search results that you can avoid. One thing you have to be careful about using the speech marks is if you're kind of too specific, you could miss out on relevant papers. So if you searched young people in speech marks, you'd miss out papers about young British people. So in that situation, there's another option available to you, proximity searching, for when you want to find terms that are near to each other. So for instance, if you searched young near 3 people, this is in the Web of Science database, so each database will be different and you need to check the help pages. It would find the term young within 3 spaces of people. So in that situation, you would get your papers about young British people. And in terms of what the space, proximity searching, what the space needs to be, whether it's 3 or 5, it really just depends on your term. So you need to have a think about what's the appropriate space or test it in the database itself. On page 4 of the handout, we explain more about these techniques. So if you want to, after the session, have a look at the handout, it might be useful to find out more about this. So the next thing we're going to do is a demo in Web of Science. So Sally showed you an example of the search strategy on the mobile apps and fruit and vegetables and children, just kind of a visual display of it. So I'm going to show you now what it would actually look like in a database search. So I'm just going to share my screen with you and go to the Web of Science database. So we access the databases from the library homepage, library.leeds.ac.uk. And in this search box in the middle of the screen, I type in the name of the database. We're choosing Web of Science. I know from the name it sounds like it might be a science database, but it is actually a multidisciplinary database that covers all subject areas. Then we click on this link in green to go to Web of Science. So now we're in the Web of Science homepage. You can see up here there's an option for signing in or register. So if you haven't actually registered with this database, so created a username and password for this database, you need to click on this link to register. Registering is really important if you want to save your searches and create alerts. If you've already registered, like I have, you need to sign in. It knows me because I've been signed in before, so my email address and password should sign me in. Okay, so now I go down onto the search box area. I see a box that says all fields, and if I click on the downward arrow on this, I choose topic. So topic here is searching in title, abstract, author keywords, the keywords authors give to their papers, and keyword plus, which are keywords given by the database to the paper. And these all help you find articles and make them discoverable. So I click on the option to topic. So the first part of my search is the mobile apps concept. So I type in all my terms around mobile apps. You can see I'm using the speech marks for phrase searching to make my search kind of relevant and more specific. I'm using the truncation to find games or games. Tools or tools for online tools. So this is the first concept. Now I need to think about the other concepts. So we mentioned in the databases, such as this database, there's various search boxes. So we just need to add another row. And again, we're going to the topic option for title, abstract, and the author keywords and keyword plus. So I'm going to type in my second concept, which is around fruit or vegetable. Vegetable or vegetables, and then the healthy eating as a phrase. Healthy diet as a phrase, or improve, and again truncation here, so it could be improved or improving nutrition. and I'm going to add another row. You can see here I'm combining these with and. There's the option or and or not, but I'm choosing and because I want to combine all three concepts together. So my third concept is around the children. So child will find child or children. Preschool will find preschoolers or preschool. Teen will find teenagers or teens or teen. Adolescent will find adolescent, adolescents, various variations. And young people. The phrase. So you can see here, I've got my topic one around the mobile apps. Second concept around fruit and vegetables and healthy eating, and the third concept around children. So, and I'm combining these with and, different concepts I'm combining with and using are for synonyms. And I click on search. And I can see that the database has found 177 results on this. And I can look down through them and see if there's any terms that are particularly interesting, or look at the abstracts and see if there's any terms I might want to add to my search. And then if I was happy with my search, I might want to save it, possibly to come back to it another time and add to it, or to use it another time. And to do this, I click on Create Alert. And I give my alert a name, so maybe fruit or veg and mobile. And then I'm going to ask it to send me email alerts. So if I do that, I'm going to ask it to, when new papers become available on this topic, instead of me having to go in and search again, I can just create, and I just click on create, and it tells me that it's created alerts. If I no longer wanted the alert, I could go into manage alert and delete the alert or change the frequency in which it emails me. If anyone has any questions, please ask in the chat. I can't actually see the chat right now, so Sally, if there's anything people are asking, please let me know. So I'm going to hand back to Sally now, and she's going to talk about getting access to content we don't subscribe to.
Thanks, Deirdre. Just a quick question in the chat. Jack, no, it will just bring up in any papers that have any of your terms, and if you use or, and the database usually puts them in date order, but you can change the way that it sorts them, but it's usually like date order or time cited, that kind of thing. It won't bring up the papers at the top that have the most terms in. Okay, so Deirdre just showed you how to do a search. When you're in Web of Science, if you want to check whether you've got a full text article, you just need to whether we have that article in full text, you just need to click on a button called Check at Leads. And if you click on the Check at Leads button, it will connect up to our library catalogue and tell you whether we have that article in full text, and it will give you the link. If once you've pressed on the Check at Leads button and it doesn't give you the link, there are a couple of options available to you. There is a document supply service. Unfortunately, that does cost you £10 per article request, so it's not cheap. It does cost us more than £10, so we don't pass on the full cost, but I appreciate it's not cheap. But if there's a really key paper that you're like, oh my goodness, this is key to my research, I really need it, and we don't subscribe to it, or you can't get it through other means, you can order it through document supply. We are part of the Sconnell Access Scheme, which includes many of the HE libraries from around the UK, which does give you access to their collections. So if you do live near to another institution that's in Sconnell, check whether they have the resource that you need. You may not be able to access the online resources through that scheme though, so it's just worth checking before you do travel if you do. We do have a specific scheme with Sheffield and York, and you basically get access to their libraries as if you were a PGR or a researcher at one of their York or Sheffield, so it's a great scheme. So do check Sheffield and York and let the library know if you want to make access of that scheme. There is lots of national and public libraries available, check that. You can also contact the author and ask for a copy. This sometimes works. They do have copyright permissions to share individually. So, you know, do contact the author and ask them, because they might be pleased that you're using their research. And please do check Google Scholar, because Google Scholar does search a number of different databases and institutional repositories. And you might find some full text versions of papers on Google Scholar, so do check there before you go down the document supply route. I'm hoping everyone can hear me. Yeah, okay. Okay, so just before, has anyone got any questions about accessing articles? I'm sure. To access the White Rose scheme, if you just speak to someone in the library, Layla, if you're coming into the library, or drop us an email and they'll tell you what you need to do in terms of accessing the other libraries. Okay, hopefully if there's any more questions, Deirdre will be able to pick those up in the chat. Okay. So now we've shown you how to do your database search, and again, it's an iterative process. You might do that first search, have a look at some of those key papers, and you might see some additional keywords that you then want to go in and add to your search. So usually it takes a few goes before you're happy with your search. Now just thinking about where to search, we've shown you Web of Science. It's a multidisciplinary database. I just want to ask you, where do you normally search for information? So last time we did a literature search, where did you search? I'm just going to give you a minute just to pop your answers in the chat box. So it could be a database, another source of information. Okay, we've got lots of replies, lots of Google Scholars, University of the Library website search. Yeah, you can do a search on our library website from that initial search box. The only issue with that search is every single resource that we have access to. So you usually end up with millions of results, which if you're just doing a quick search for some maybe key papers, it can be quite useful just to go to that library search. It's a bit like a Google search and find some key papers, but it can be quite hard if you want to focus in on just relevant papers. It's usually better to go to some subject databases or multidisciplinary databases and search the content in there, but definitely have a look on the library search and see if you see what you find, but you may find the results a bit unwieldy. Yeah, JSTOR, Google Scholar, Web of Science, Scopus, Mendeley, lots of similar ones coming up here. So things like Scopus, Web of Science, these are databases. Those Web of Science and Scopus are multidisciplinary databases, so they cover all topics. So if you're doing a comprehensive literature search, you may want to search at least one of those, Web of Science or Scopus. Google Scholar. Google Scholar is, well, everyone knows what Google Scholar is, but the problem with Google Scholar, we don't know what it searches. We don't know what it's indexed. It doesn't tell us what it's searching. It basically just crawls the web. So we don't know what we might be missing if we search Google Scholar. So Google Scholar can be a great place to search just for some initial information, some key papers. But if you want to do some detailed searching, it's probably better to go to some of the subject databases or the multidisciplinary databases. I can't see any subject-specific databases, and Miranda's going to ask that question. There are subject-specific databases available, and you can access a list of these subject databases on the subject pages on the library website. So on the library website, there is, I'll just do a quick screen share so you can see how you can access these. But on the library website, if you just scroll down to subject databases here under Student Essentials. So under Student Essentials, subject databases, and basically there is a subject page for each kind of main subject area. Not all subject areas, and it's quite broad, so you can see we've got, you know, architecture, biochemistry, business. So have a look on here and see if you can find one that's relevant to you. I'm just going to scroll down and have a look at sociology and social policy. And on each of these pages, you will see a list of key databases here. So these are subject-specific databases. Have a look along this list and have a read of the description of the database, and have a think whether it would be relevant for you to search. If you're doing a comprehensive search, you may want to search about 4 or 5 databases. You're not going to search every single one of these databases. You need to select the ones that are most relevant. Oh, actually, someone did put JSTOR in the chat box, didn't they? So that is one of the subject specific databases. So that is a good place to start, this subject database page. If your research is multidisciplinary and covers 2 different areas, remember to check the subject pages for each of those specific areas, because there could be some databases in one of the areas and that doesn't cover the other area. So have a check on both of the subject pages to see what databases you should be searching. So do have a look at those subject pages. I'm just going to go back to sharing the slides with you. Yes, Miranda, these do, well, most of them do contain international research, but we will be talking a bit more about this next week. But a lot of the databases, the mainstream databases like Web of Science and Scopus, the majority of their content is focused on English language. It's focused on research from the global north. So we will be talking more next week about how you can actually make sure you're not missing out on certain voices within your research. Because yes, most of these databases that are, although on the subject databases pages, we have added a lot more databases that cover research from the global south, but we will cover that a little bit more later next week. But yes, those big mainstream databases, Web of Science, Scopus, things like that, will have a global north focus. No, that's fine, Ran. I'm really glad that you asked that question and that you're aware of it and that you know that's on your mind. So that's really good. So yeah, have a look on your subject pages and have a think about which databases you might need to search in your specific search. And in the handout as well, I just wanted to mention around Google Scholar, just wanted to let you know that you can set up the library links on the Google Scholar site, and the instructions for that in the handout, but I might just show you now because it is quite handy. It shows you full text links for our specific library, so I'll just quickly show you that because it is quite a good thing to know. If you're on a university PC, it'll already be set up, but if you're working on your own laptop, you just need to go to Google Scholar, and to set up our library links, go to the 3 lines in the top left-hand side and go to Settings. And then in this left-hand menu here, there's Library Links here. Oh, for some reason mine has forgotten Leeds University Library, so I'll add it in. So what you need to do is set up, just search for Leeds University and click search. And all you need to click is University of Leeds, check at Leeds. So if you click on that, I don't know why mine had gone off there because I have set it up before, and then click save. So now when you do a search on Google Scholar, I did a search recently on this, so I'll just use this. You can see our check at Leeds links here. So this means that we have access to these papers. A lot of these are available anyway online freely. You can see the links there, but there might be a few, no, not on that page, where there is a check at Leeds link but no other links. It's not showing me on this one, but sometimes you'll get a paper where it's just available via our library, so the check at Leeds link will be there, but you can see these other full text links here. So it's always worth checking Google Scholar and connect up to Leeds University Library, and then if I was to follow this, it will take me through to the paper. So just a little tip there that I wanted to share.